Hello and welcome to Discover CTDL Support Services, Terms, and Credential Registry Publishing Options. Thank you for joining. With me today, I have Nate Arco, Associate Solutions Architect, Julia Gianalis, Accounts and Publishing Manager. I am Jeannie Kitchens, Chief Technology Services Officer, and Mike Parsons, Senior Solutions Architect. And I also want to acknowledge Cadence Calexto, who is our Operations Manager, and you've got this webinar all set up for us, and we'll be keeping an eye on the chat. Thank you all. Credential Engine is a nonprofit organization, and we have a mission to map the credential landscape with clear and consistent information. We do this through a set of programs that we manage through Credential Engine with our team, through many partnerships and collaborations and empowerment, and through our technologies. And today we're going to be focused on those technologies that are enabling the launch of the support services. So today we're going to take a look at the CTDL Support Services origins. We're going to take a look at the CTDL updates for support services, and that will be provided by Nate Argo. And then we're going to dig into the new publishing and consuming options for support services. We'll get a brief overview from Mike Parsons on those options, and then Julia is going to provide us a demonstration of publishing support services data to the Credential Registry. Close out our webinar. Before we get going into those topics, so I do want to make sure everyone is familiar with the Credential Engine technologies that are all impacted by these updates and the launch that we are having today. The Credential Transparency Description language is fundamental to all of our work at Credential Engine. It is a large schema, and we have updated that schema to include support services terms. And as I said, Nate will go over those in just a moment. We have a suite of publishing tools that range from an API for structured data to manual entry, bulk uploads, a bad publisher tool, and more. So today we're going to take a look at a publishing option for support services, and of course the Credential Registry, where the data is stored as CTDL linked open data and made available for other systems to consume and use. And we'll take a look at what that looks like in the Credential Finder. The Credential Transparency Description language, as I said, is a very large language, and you can see the diagram on the right here paints a picture of what the CTDL includes. The circles with the names on them represent CTDL terms that can all be linked together and paint important pictures, tell important stories that help people achieve their goals. And today we're going to focus on connections to support services. Let me tell you a little bit about the CTDL Support Services origins. So when we update the Credential Transparency Description language, we follow a rigorous and important process, and this ensures an orderly process for changing and updating the terms that's durable, persistent, and increases the value of the CTDL linked open data structure. We can drop links in the chat to our policies that we follow. And you can see here that what we do is we begin by organizing task groups. As a matter of fact, we have a task group underway now, and the work that we're about to show you was accomplished because of the support services task group. So we have a task group that completes a set of activities over a defined period of time. That is followed by a public webinar and comment period. So anyone can weigh into the CTDL updates. So both of these were completed for the support services updates launch, and then we implement. So what you're seeing today are all the things that were implemented as a result of the chartered support services task group. This task group completed their work back in April 2023. So you can also see by the timeline that not only is our process rigorous, but it is timely. So we can get the work done in a manner where the terms can be used following the completion of a task group. And this particular task group was very interested in support services, not only for education entities, but for people who may or may not be affiliated with a learning organization, or people who may be workers or employees. So the design of the CTDL supports those kinds of use cases. So we can also do put support services for areas outside of education, and of course education can be published through the Credential Registry using the CTDL. And I'm going to turn it over to Nate Argo to talk about the support services updates that have been made to the CTDL.
All right. So the way that we decided to capture this data was through a new class that we're calling Support Service, and a handful of new properties, along with the reuse of a bunch of existing properties and a couple of existing classes. The Support Service class is defined in the blue box on the left here. I'm not going to read through all of that, but the short version of it is that it's a way of capturing data about the services, the accommodations, the resources, the financial aid, that kind of thing that is available to individuals pursuing a credential, individuals who are in a course or in some kind of a program or other related offerings. You can see the listing of the new class and the new properties over on the right. And again, we're reusing a number of existing CTDL properties as well. So this is not all that's involved. This is just the new stuff. We can go to the next slide. So this is a really simple example here. Here we have an organization on the upper left, represented by that circle there. And that organization has 3 separate support services in kind of the center column here. The first one just has a few support service types with it, uh, just as a really, really basic example. The second one has some accommodations as well as some service types associated with it, and you'll notice that that links out via the available at property, which is an existing property, links out to a location, which in this case is the main campus. And the way that you would interpret this is that this organization offers this service, it's available at the main campus, and that service has those accommodations and those support service types. Similarly, with the one on the bottom here, that organization also offers a service with a number of support service types, but those are available at the library as opposed to the main campus. So it's just a really basic example of how all of this works together with existing classes and properties in CTDL. Next slide, please. Now this one can be a little bit tricky to read. If you want, I can screen share this one. We can take a closer look at it. Give me 1 second here. Grab the screen share. Okay, so same basic idea in the sense that you have an organization. That organization offers a number of things in this diagram. We'll just go through these here. At the very high level, the organization has a support service that is academic advising. You'll notice there's another property here, support service condition, which references what we call a condition profile, which is essentially a way of capturing conditions related to whatever resource is linking to it. In this case, we're saying that the academic advising, the condition for accessing that is that you have to either be a current student or a future student. So that's just a really simple high-level case here. The organization offers a learning program, which is indicated by this circle here. That learning program, in turn, has a support service, academic advising with flexible schedules in multiple languages. This service, you'll notice, is offered by a different organization from the one that's offering the learning program. So that's another piece of functionality that we built into this, is the ability for organizations other than the one that's offering whatever the thing, for lack of a better term, is, to offer a service related to that thing. The organization on the left here also offers a number of courses related to that learning program. In this case, this course here has its own support service, which is is intended for intermediate level job seekers. That service is also offered by this organization here in the middle. The organization on the left offers a credential that requires that course we just talked about. That credential here also requires another course, which is unrelated to the program, but this course has a particular offering via what we call a scheduled offering class, which is a way of capturing particular, as the name implies, particular offerings of a course, of an assessment, of something related like that are maybe limited to specific periods of time or to specific cycles of time. In this case, we have daytime on the weekdays. It could be, nighttime on the weekends, those kinds of things. But for that particular offering of that course, there is a support service. In this case, it is childcare, which again is offered by this other organization up here. The reason for this is to indicate that if you have a course that has maybe 2 or 3 different offerings, maybe you have a weekday daytime, maybe you have a nighttime weekend, maybe you have, some third one that's online only or whatever. If you wanted to indicate that only the weekday daytime one has that service with it, that's how you would do that here. This course has a service directly related to the course, independent of the offerings, but this support service here is only available at the main campus, and that one is for clear signage, physical accessibility, and service animals. So any questions on any of that?
Thank you, Nate. It was really great to see that your purpose in there was to show that we could do very simple scenarios, and then we could also do very complex scenarios that are real world scenarios, right? Classes are online and in person. And again, not just focused on education, but it could be support services that are also affiliated or unaffiliated with other work and so forth.
Right. It was important to be able to capture that kind of granularity. And a lot of what you see in that diagram was already existing stuff in CTDL. Very little of that is actually brand new. So we were able to leverage a lot of what we already done. Speaking of the new things, though, what we have here as part of this capturing support service information, we came up with 2 new concept schemes, which are controlled vocabularies, lists of controlled values. We'll take a look at those in the next couple of slides. We have a list of accommodation types and a list of support service types. And those are part of the support service data. So the accommodation types you can see here, I'm not going to read through all of these, but they are mostly related to accessibility. A lot of these are related to accessibility as it pertains to a physical location, although some of them are related to accessibility of resources. So things like alternate language, alternate formats, things like that. You can see the list of them on the right here. Next slide, please. And then the other type of the other controlled vocabulary we came up with are support service types. So there are quite a few of these, as you can see here. Is a fairly significant update. These support service types we try to capture at a reasonable level of granularity, a variety of types of services. These can be mixed and matched and combined to more specifically describe a particular service. And again, that's also along with all of the other data that's captured in support service profile, as well as its connections to all of the other things, such as those in the graph we just looked at a few minutes ago. So we can be very particular and specific as needed about the data that we're capturing. And I think there was, yeah, one more slide here. So to get a better idea of how to use all of this, we have a bunch of documentation in our CTDL Handbook, which, as you can see on the list on the left in the screenshot there, has a broad variety of topics over basically how to use CTDL to capture, to explain, to consume a lot of different kinds of data. The relevant one here, of course, being support services. So we went into greater depth and detail with diagrams and illustrations, some of which we've seen here. There's a few more in the handbook in addition to that, if you wanted to go into even more detail on that with how to use support services. And so this is all part of CTDL, which we make available under a open Creative Commons license. So you don't have to be using the registry to use CTDL. In fact, we encourage people who are maybe building new systems or want to document things on their own web pages to use CTDL, to use it basically anywhere that it makes sense to do so, not just in the registry. Although certainly we would encourage you to use the registry as well. You can see a list of some ideas of other places you could use CTDL on the bottom of the slide here.
Yeah. Thank you for that overview, Nate. Every term in the CTDL has a definition for semantic meaning, and you can follow the links to find out what the definitions are for all of the terms that you saw here. And it's also a living language. I mean, as we already alluded to, by expanding it to include support services, we expanded the CTDL. It is a living language. And so we can also expand on these support service terms over time through use cases and so forth, and through the process that I had mentioned earlier. Those use cases came from our support services task group and through our equity council. And I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Mike Parsons and to Julia.
The Credential Engine has tools for publishing to the registry. Certainly that's not the be all and end all behind the CTDL and having data formatted as JSON LD and so on, but we have the Credential Registry to be able to illustrate what it might look like. So we have the Publishing Assistant API. This is, I don't know, the 12th, 13th, 14th, whatever type that we're now able to publish to and consume from the Credential Registry. We have on our CredReg site background information on how to set up for publishing, basic formatting to, in this case, to our support service. In GitHub, we have ready to run examples that they're all in C#. They're pretty easy to adapt to other programming languages. We certainly recommend using the publishing API, but depending on when people are first starting out, sometimes using a bulk upload is a useful way of seeing what the data looks like. So in the publisher system, which Julia will demonstrate in a moment, there is a bulk upload option. And for data in the registry, there is no API key required to get it directly by its URL using a CTID. You can get their resource, which is the basic information, the graph, which is the resource plus any related blank nodes, or the envelope, which contains information about the history of when it was created, history of when it was published, and so on. And then the registry search API does require an API key, but it's a very detailed API for searching. We have getting started sections on the CredReg site. We have a page where you can do your own test queries without using an API, and so on. And then, of course, downloading and importing for offline use. The import project used by the Finder to get data from the registry is something we regularly, maybe it's not as regular as we should, upload to GitHub so partners can download it and then use it to download and import data into, well, in our case, a database, and then it can be migrated to something specific that the partner might be using. And there's also an option to create widgets. It can be really useful, particularly when you have a large amount of information. That way, if you create a widget, you can say, I only want to see my credentials published by my organization or owned by my organization or related organizations. And then you can use that for kind of testing, or in some cases, partners have embedded that in their websites. Okay. Now we have a demo by Julia.
Thank you. So this slide just goes over the steps to bulk upload your support services. So we can go on to the next slide. I'll go into more detail. The first step is to create your profile and set up your organization. To do this, we have a getting started page on our website. And once your user account has been created and your organization has been submitted, the publishing team will approve your organization and you can begin uploading your data. Next slide. The next step is to bulk upload your support services. So you will download the template, add all relevant information about your support services, and then upload your support services. The next step is to approve your support services. And to do that, you'll just go to the organization summary page, select all, and approve all selected items. And once you have approved your support services, they will be published to the registry and then made publicly available in the Credential Finder.
Before Julia gets into her hands-on demo, her live demo that she's going to do right now, I do want to mention that Southern New Hampshire University and Western Governors University have both published their support services, and you can view them in the Credential Finder. And I want to thank both of them as fantastic partners. Thank you for doing that. And would you like me to go ahead and give you the screen share, Julia?
That would be great. Thank you. Awesome. So first, to begin your bulk upload, you'll log into the credential publisher here, and you'll log in using the same login credentials you created when setting up your account in our account system, and the two systems are synced, so you won't need a separate login. And after you log into the publisher, you'll see this Add New Bulk Upload dropdown right up here. And if you click that, you'll see this gray subheading that says Bulk CSV Upload. And underneath that, you'll see the Support Services link. You'll click that link and be directed to the Bulk Upload tool. On the tool, you'll see this Select Your Organization option at the top of the page, and that will appear if you are associated with multiple organizations. So to select your organization, you'll just click on the drop-down and select your organization from the options, and then you'll be on that organization's Bulk Upload tool. If you scroll down a bit, you'll see an introduction to the Bulk Upload tool with steps on how to upload new support services and steps on how to update existing support services. And to the right, you'll see this Print This Page button, which will allow you to download and print a PDF of the steps to bulk upload your support services. Moving down the page to step 1, which is to complete your organization. You'll approve your organization beforehand, and it will be published before you start uploading your support services. But if you do need to make edits to your organization afterwards for any reason, you can just expand this tab and you can click on this edit button and make those updates. Also, if you notice here, you'll see your organization's CTID, as well as addresses for your organization and an address ID. I'll mention this as we go through the demonstration, but if you'd like to point to addresses for your organization in the data, you'd come back up here and use the address ID for each location. Step 2 is to select your properties, and we have it selected to upload new support services for the purpose of this demo, but you can also update existing support services once the data is in the registry. And you'll see this Required Properties tab, which expands. And these properties are part of our minimum data policy and have been pre-selected for you, so they'll automatically be included in your spreadsheet when you download the template. And the only property that is under this Required tab and is not checked off, and so not a part of our minimum data policy, is Offered By, right here. The reason for that is because any support services that are uploaded will be owned by your organization, and Offered By is only required if another organization offers your support services. So Offered By will not be automatically included in your spreadsheet. So please be sure to check off that property if it is applicable and another organization offers your support services. And just to run through these required properties, they're external identifier, a unique identifier that you provide to ensure duplicate support services are not created. The resource name, a description of the support service, the subject web page, the language for the support service, and the lifecycle status type. And just looking at the minimum data, we have the property name in this column, the description of the property, as well as an example of what data goes into that property. And we also have these special data requirements on how to format the data in the spreadsheet for the upload. You'll notice this property, lifecycle status type, has these blue information bubbles next to each of the data values that you can click on. And they provide more information on each option, as well as how they're supposed to be formatted. Now, as I mentioned, this policy is very minimum, so we encourage our partners to publish past the minimum data policy so we can have that rich data set in the registry. So the first tab past the minimum required data is our recommended properties. And if you expand the tab, you'll see that none of these have been checked off. So you have the ability to scroll through here, look at the property names and the description examples, and select the ones that are applicable for your support services. You'll see you can select from delivery type, support service category, or the types of support services offered by an agent, as well as accommodation type down here, if the support service offers any modification to facilitate equal access. If you want to add any of these to your spreadsheet, you just check them off and they'd be included in your downloaded template. Moving on down the page, we have our optionals properties tab. And if you expand that, you'll see we have part of support service, which is if the support service is part of another support service and you want to show that relationship in the data. We have availability listing, which is a URL where someone can go to in person to pursue the support service. We have the available at property, which is a property where you can point to physical locations. This is where you would use that address ID from step 1 to point to any of the physical locations for your organization. And we have available online at, is an online location where the support service can be pursued. We also have occupation type. You can use ONET codes, keywords, date effective, expiration date, and alternate name, just to name a few. And the next tab down here is the condition properties tab. And this is where you can add if your support service has any requirements. And if you do add condition properties, you'll be required to include an external identifier, a condition type, and description. And under condition type, there's an audience type, the applicable audience type for which the support service is intended. And you'll see you can select from a list of data values over here. The next tab is the financial assistance properties tab. If you'd like to add any financial assistance properties, for each profile, you just need the external identifier, name, and either a description or subject web page. And we also have cost properties, moving down the page. To enter any costs for your support services, you'll just need an external identifier, description, and a details URL. And once you've selected all of your properties, you'll come down here to step 3 to download your template. Just be sure to select include sample data and include instructions, so those will be included in the template. And click the download template button. And this will save to your desktop as a CSV file. You can convert the CSV to an Excel or a Google Sheet to easily input your data. So I will move over to this tab. You'll see that I've opened the CSV file in Google Sheets to start inputting my data. And you'll see sample data and instructions here in rows 2 and 3, so that you can reference them in the spreadsheet and you don't have to keep bouncing back and forth from the bulk upload page in the template. And you'll see in row 1 that all of these are the different properties that were included. The required properties have been included, as well as any other recommended and optional properties you selected. And you can start to input your data in the spreadsheet using a new row for each support service. As a note, we have a minimum data policy, as I mentioned, but for the rest of the properties, if some of the properties do not apply to some support services, that is okay. Just fill in the data that you have. So some of these additional property columns might be blank for some of your support services. So I have a filled out template on the next tab. So once you're done filling out the template, you'll delete column A, which I'll do right now, as well as rows 2 and 3. These need to be removed before upload or you'll receive an error. And it's also important to note to save as a CSV file, which I'll do right now, as that is the file extension that works with our system. And so I'm going to go back to the bulk upload page. The next step is just a few tips and tricks on how to input data into your spreadsheet. We've already put in our data, so I will scroll back down to step 5, which is to upload your data. So you'll click choose file, and you will click the file that you just downloaded and preview to see the data. You can use this opportunity to do a final quality check. You'll see that it has replicated the spreadsheet that you've uploaded, which is really nice. And once you're done looking over your data, you can just click this Save this data to the publisher button. And it'll ask you if you're sure you want to upload the data. And the button will tell you that the upload is in progress, and it will give you an estimated upload time, and just let you know that if there are a lot of URLs that must be validated or a lot of occupations, industries, or competency frameworks to align, it might take a bit longer. And once the data has been uploaded, you will get this green success bar that says your data has been uploaded. You'll see upload results. And then the next step is to approve your data to be published. So to do that, you'll come down to step 6 and click this link to go to your organization summary page. And then once you're here, depending on how much data you have in the publisher, you'll just wait for these tabs to load. And you will eventually see a tab that says Support Services. You'll click that and you'll see all of the data that you've uploaded to the publisher. And so to approve your data, you'll just select all and select this Approve All Selected Items button at the bottom of the page. And doing that will email the publishing team, just letting us know that you have approved the data, and we'll go in and publish it. And it will be made publicly available in our Finder, which I will show you right now. So you'll see I'm in the search in the Finder, and I search by support services. You'll see that Southern New Hampshire University has all of these support services published. You can also see support services from your credential organization page right down here. And that is the conclusion of the demonstration. If you have any questions, you can email us at info@credentialengine.org or publishing@credentialengine.org. And this will be made publicly available after the conclusion of the webinar.
Thank you, Julia. That was a really great demonstration. And if anyone has any questions now, they can feel free to go ahead and drop them in the chat, and we'll do our best to answer them during this webinar as well. I also want to again note that Southern New Hampshire University and Western Governors University have published support services to the registry, and we can drop the links to the Credential Finder where you can see that, that data that they have published. And thank you again. Pass this here. Okay, so the CTDL Support Services terms, publishing and consuming options are all available now. We invite you to go ahead and create or log into your Credential Registry account and begin publishing. Following this webinar, of course, this recording will be public information. Julia, as you just saw a second ago, pre-recorded a demo of the upload that she just did. So there's no need to play that again during this webinar, but it is available to you from a resource page that has everything you need to go ahead and get started publishing. As Julia mentioned, if you have any questions, though, feel free to contact us. We are accessible during normal US business hours at publishing@credentialengine.org. And that concludes our webinar today. You also have our contact information here. And let me just check and see if anybody had anything in the chat, any questions coming up? No questions? All right, if there aren't any questions, we want to thank everyone again. And I noticed that some of the attendees in this presentation today were members of our Support Services Task Group and probably members of our Equity Council. So again, I want to thank both for your contributions that made this launch possible today, and to our partners who have already published and will be publishing in the future. Thank you.